Hi, I'm Joe Ollmann, creator of the Woodchipper, and this is the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Joe Ollmann about his new graphic novel, The Woodchipper, from Drawn and Quarterly. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button, so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Joe Ollmann lives in Hamilton, the Riviera of Southern Ontario. His third book with Drawn and Quarterly, Fictional Father, was the first graphic novel to be shortlisted in the category of adult fiction at the Governor-General's Literary Awards. His newest graphic novel is entitled The Woodchipper, published by Drawn and Quarterly. The Woodchipper is described as a suite of comic short stories focused on his trademark nervous wreck characters caught in a series of escalating personal disasters. Everyone's doing their best, everyone's just trying to get through the day. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Joe Ollmann about his new graphic novel, The Woodchipper, from Drawn and Quarterly. So, Joe Ollmann, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Oh, thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
No, this is great. I know that we've met many times at different festivals across Canada, but this is the first time we've actually had a real interview. So I apologize for taking so long, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
Oh boy, I can trace it back. It was a Spider-Man. Like I'd read Archie and Mad and stuff, but I never read superhero comics. And then one day I bought one and I was hooked for life. It was a Spider-Man. John Romita Sr. was drawing it. And then I went back immediately with the money I had left and bought a Captain America. And it was when Kirby was back at Marvel drawing Captain America. And that freaked me out because I'd never seen anything drawn like that. And Hitler was in it. And Captain America was blinded by someone ripping his eyes. And it freaked me out. I was really scared of Kirby's artwork at first when it's your first time encountering it. It was so different than anything else.
That's truly a good start.
Yeah, it scared the hell out of me. So yeah, but obviously I was addicted forever from then on. So yeah.
Sure. Well, those are great books growing up, but I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
I'm fully committed to comics as an art form. I used to dabble in other things, like I would paint or I would do animation or other art forms, poetry, whatever. Wrote short stories, but I'm fully committed to. I just make comics. I think as you get older, you narrow down your interests, and comics is my thing. It's the only thing that I have that I love completely, and I never tire of. Yet it's very tiring to do. So other cartoonists really inspire me. I look at great works by people, who are my friends and contemporaries, and I'm so in awe of them. Like I still feel like a fanboy around people I know well, like Seth and Chester and Julie Doucette, and just to name some Canadian ones. Sammy Harcum, The Blood of the Virgin was like one of my favorite books. And there's just so many. There's Japanese artists like that series recently, Tokyo These Days. It was a 3-volume series by Teo Matsumoto, and I thought that was the most inspiring thing I'd read in a long time because it's very comic centric. It's about a manga editor assembling a crack team of his favorite artists to make this anthology of his dreams. So it's so comics that it's as exciting as reading like Drifting Life by Tatsumi, which was also incredibly inspiring because everything about him was comics. So mostly just other cartoonists. I mean, I love movies. I'm a giant movie watcher. I watch a lot of movies and I read a lot. So yeah, just other artists, artists in general. I work at an art gallery doing art installs and art takedowns. So seeing other people's work and looking at it up close and analyzing it is fascinating to me. So there's just endless inspiration in other artists, really.
Cool. Oh, that's great stuff. So we're here talking about your latest graphic novel, The Woodchipper, from Drawn and Quarterly. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the story. What is the book all about?
So The Woodchipper is short stories, which It's sometimes a hard sell, but I love like an anthology of short stories. Like in the 80s when the floppies were still a thing, like Eight Ball and Chris Ware's Acme Novelty Library and Adrian Tomina's and Dirty Plot by Julie and Seth and Chester's, all of those anthology comics, little short pieces, and Peter Bagg and others. I just love that format, like not one thing, but many things. And I've always been a fan of the short story. So I felt like doing a short stories. That's how I started out. I was doing short pieces until I started doing graphic novels. The first two books were collections of short stories. So I felt like I wanted to return to that. So I just did it. And I think it's important to just do what you feel like is the right thing rather than forcing yourself. I could have tried to force myself to do a longer book, but I didn't feel like it at the time. So I just did the short stories. It's 5 short stories, various topics all over the place. My usual kind of sad stories that are leavened with humor to make them palatable. That's how I always think of how my work is. And nothing is satisfactorily resolved at the end, hopefully.
Is there a through line through all the stories, or is each one separate in their own thing?
No, they're separate characters, separate everything. They're very diverse, really, like in terms of subject matter. One's about a city worker in Hamilton who becomes traumatized by something happening with a woodchipper and just him falling into post-traumatic stress disorder and then climbing out the other end of it. And then there's a story about a young woman who's a security guard at a meat packing, like a slaughterhouse, a big slaughterhouse that has a laboratory and everything. And she becomes friends with these animal rights protesters, and she becomes less enamored with her job. And it's kind of like about trying to be a moral person in a job that's not terribly moral. There's like a very barely disguised versions of my wife and myself in a story about like nothing happening at a party, but a lot of inner thinking going on. There's a story about a guy. He's kind of like a wannabe millionaire who is like running his parents' submarine shop and running a Airbnb knockoff kind of thing. And he's subscribed to one of these get rich quick guys who, it's about greed and it's about morality of greed, and they're all over the place, like thematically, really. But generally, they're kind of sad stories, but you will laugh a lot during them, hopefully.
Is it a commentary on today's society? Like you're sort of looking through the lens of society and capturing it in graphic novel form?
I suppose so. I mean, I've tried to be overtly political and write stuff, and it's just angry screeds because the world is killing me right now, and it's killing anybody who's a moral person. Like, the world is a madhouse, and we're just careening towards destruction. And I try and comment on it, but I'm very ineffectual at it. I see other people. There's many artists, cartoonists that are so good at, actively satirizing and skewering modern politicians and like our lack of action on climate change and just the mean-spiritedness of the world. They're really good at it. I am not good at it. So I tell little stories that have like my political philosophy within them. If you read them, I don't know. My last book, Fictional Father, it was the first time I'd ever read reviews on like Goodreads or something like that, where people were like, this guy's got woke. He got woke. And I was like, I don't know. I think I'm doing the same stuff that I've always done. Like, there's nothing, I haven't changed anything. I think it's just people's reaction to kind of left-leaning, kind of moral, political messages in comics. It's more of a reaction by them than my changing my work. I think that's the same work I've always done. I haven't changed how I work. It's always the same. There's definitely commentaries in every single story about the present state of the world, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Now, it's been said that you should always first create for yourself, whatever you're doing, whether it's a film or a book or a graphic novel. But who ultimately is a target audience for your book?
I think probably people like me who think like me. I don't know. I think people that like the comics that I like will probably like these stories. So like, I mean, they could look up on their algorithm on Amazon or the Evil Empire there or whatever, and it'll tell you, if you like Joe Ollmann, you'll like this, So there's probably a technical way of doing it. I just think people that like stories about, human interaction, like character driven kind of narratives where not much happens, but except within, like, there's a lot of going on inside and that. I don't know what the target audience, but you're right. I think you have to please yourself. And that's what I try and do. I try and write things that I could, read back and go, oh, I like that. Hopefully I like it. On a good day, I like what I do, but.
Sure, absolutely. Now, I want to switch gears completely
Yep.
here and ask you to talk a little bit about your creative process. Can you walk me
Okay.
through how you put this book together from soup to nuts?
Okay. So I'll start writing process. When I finish a big project, I take a long time to like lie around and listen to records and read at night. I don't try and do any new work, and I just get to a place where I'm ready. And I know sometimes it takes a couple weeks, sometimes it takes a month, and I know I'm ready. When I'm ready, I start writing. And I'm a big writer. I'm more of a writer than an artist, I think. I always have been. So I concentrate heavily on the writing, and I really work that. I write longhand, like old school. I feel like that's a brain body connection that works for me. I find that writing it by hand is really effective. Once I get it to a point where I'm happy with it, I will type it up. In the typing up process, I'll edit, and then I print those out literally, and then I literally circle and break it down into panels and pages. I'll break it up from those written pages. And at that point, then I'll draw thumbnails of everything. And I plan my thumbnails very carefully. So it's camera angles and, what's happening in the frame, who's in the frame, how large things are. I always work with a 9-panel grid. I just always have, and I make slight variations, but it's always within that grid. I just do that because I feel like it's a movie screen and you don't change the size of your movie screen. It always stays the same. So I feel like it's weird to change your panel size, but I like it when other people do it. But that's me. That's my own restriction. And then once the thumbnails are done, it's literally just getting down to drawing. And at that point, I'm putting on like 40-hour audiobooks. I'm listening to Charles Dickens or Moby Dick or whatever, and I'm just drawing, and that goes on for years, and it's really enjoyable. But at that point, it's just a mechanical process almost. It's because it's so well planned out, the writing and the storyboards. I heard Alfred Hitchcock said, like, so he loved writing and storyboarding and planning everything. He's a big planner. So by the time he got to filming, he was bored, and it was kind of this mechanical exercise. Now, I'm not bored when I'm drawing. I enjoy drawing, and as I get older, I push myself harder. I don't let bad drawings go that I would have let go when I was younger. I try and redraw until I'm happy with it, so there's nothing that looks terrible to me later. It is very much, the planning is done, and it's kind of, I'm just a guy drawing it at that point. So, and then that's it. Everything is done by hand. I'm on paper and I'm using Hunt 107 nibs exclusively and filling in blacks with brushes. And then I scan them and I will do minor cleanups in Photoshop, and that's it. And now that I'm working in color, I'm using translucent inks. I use just primary colors because I'm colorblind. So I just use basic color theory, like orange is made of red and yellow. And I know that. And I just sort of estimate as best as possible what is the right color for things. So it's always interesting what comes out. I ask for advice from my family a lot because they can see colors so better than I can. So yeah, and
That's
that's
pretty
it.
cool. I was
Yeah.
going to say, though, because you're also the artist and the writer, as you're put on your writer hat, do you hear the artist in your ear going, hey, by the way, do this because this will turn out really good? Does that happen?
Sometimes, but more often, the artist in my head is saying, don't write horses in and don't write crowd scenes, like anything that you hate drawing or you're bad at drawing. Sometimes you do. You write things and you're like, oh God, now I have to draw 100 pages of horses or whatever. And you're cursing yourself. You're like, write something else. Yeah. So
Okay.
that is always a thing. Yeah. The artist is always talking to you going, don't write that. Yeah.
Well, I've got to ask you now that we've been doing this interview here in the podcast. I'm wondering, what other ways do you plan to promote the graphic novel?
Oh boy. I do my ineffectual social media stuff. I still have a website, but I haven't updated it. I usually update it every time I have a new book coming out. I haven't got to that yet, but it's minimal. I used to love having a blog and just writing, reports from shows on there and things like that, or just whatever I was working on. I miss that. I kind of think we've lost a lot by losing blogs because That sounds so stupid. It's like it's not like it's some this ancient tradition, It's like it's a thing from 20 years ago or whatever. But I do think it was great. I like blogs a lot, and I think they were really effective. And I think it just shows how shortened our attention span has come. I can't read a whole blog. I can only read like, the short little blurb on social media. So yeah, so probably social media. I'm doing a tour, small tour. Like I'm just doing Toronto at the Lillian Smith branch of the library with the Beguiling on February 10th. And then I'll be in Montreal at the Library Drawn Quarterly February 12th. And then Hamilton February 21st at the Art Gallery. In Toronto, Gillian Tamaki's been nice enough to come and to kind of have a chat with me about the book. And in Montreal, I've got Howard Chakowitz, cartoonist from CBC's Wiretap. He'll be there. And then in Hamilton, I got good old Seth coming out to talk with me there. Yeah, and I just do anything. If any interviews come up, I'm always glad to do them, glad that people are interested enough to write about it. I really think that's an underrated thing, people who write reviews. It's an unsung art form. Like they bother to analyze people's work and write about it and promote it in that way. And I always think it's such an admirable thing to do, and it's kind of just taken for granted often. Reviewing is a noble art form, and it's much appreciated.
Right. Well, we've been talking about the Woodchipper. I guess it's really too early to ask if you have any other projects on the go, but I have to ask, do you have anything else on the go?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. The Woodchipper was done like 2 years ago. It took a while to get out just because I guess that's just the way of publishing now. So I'm like 150 pages into a new project that is tentatively called The Quarry. And it's about these three boys in the 1950s who are goofing around in a quarry, and they're using a big pry bar and dislodging rocks from the wall very dangerously, knocking off big pieces of the cliff in this abandoned quarry. And then they expose this hole in the wall, which is a cave. And they start to explore this cave, and then they find these little fungal creatures. They're like these little tiny creatures. They're pink, and they live in this cave. They start to hang out with these creatures, and the caves are full of bioluminescent fungus. And these kids, they become tyrants to these little creatures. And then they become addicted to this one form of fungus that the creatures eat, but it's like a hallucinogenic to the boys. It's a dark, crazy story. It's I described the plot to my wife, and she goes, Joe, that's dark. It is dark. It is. It's drawn like in a kind of a blue and white, like just blue washes, and it looks kind of like a children's comic, kind of, but it's the darkest thing. And it's kind of an allegory for colonialism and that. I'm just really enjoying doing it because it's very different. And like the other thing is, I'm very big on, as I say, I feel more of a writer than an artist. So Tom Devlin at Drawn Quarterly, my editor there, he goes, why don't you try and not write narration in your next book? Just like as an experiment. And I was like, you're tying my hands and taking away my strongest thing. But I thought I'd give it a go, and I've been doing it, and I've been enjoying it. It's a whole different thing, and I'm writing this book very differently. Usually, like I said, I plan and I have everything. I'm writing a chapter at a time, so I'm not even sure where things are going to go. And it's invigorating because it's an entirely different process. I'm just like improvising as I go. Like, so it could be really good or it could be really bad. Who knows? It's like, we'll see when it's done. About 150 pages into it. I'm a little on hold right now because it was the Christmas, and then I'm just kind of doing stuff to promote the new book. So it's on hold for a bit. I'll get back to it soon, and we'll see what dark, horrible happens in this cave.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. We started off the conversation saying we met up at many different events, festivals. I'm wondering if you've got anything lined up for this year, any conventions or anything.
I probably will be at MCAF and TCAF. Like I always go to those because I usually hang out with Andy from Conundrum, and he's nice enough to let me crash in his hotel room, and I help him out by manning the tables there. So that's always good because we're old pals, so we get to see each other and hang out. That's always a pleasure. So yeah, I'll be at those. I don't have any other plans for anything else. If I get invited to anything, I'll be there, So we'll see.
Cool. So you mentioned off the top that you've got a website. Where do you recommend that people go to find you online to find out about your current and your future plans?
I would say the best would be on Instagram. That's where I'm mostly active. I'm on Blue Sky, but I'm the most schizophrenic person on Blue Sky. I'm like this psychotic. That's where all my political screeds come out. So it's just like long curse filled. They can't do this. What they're doing, I'm like a lunatic over there. And then on Instagram, I'm like, hey, here's my comics I'm drawing. It's a very kind of weird way of being. But anyway, Instagram. My name is Old Joe Ollmann on Instagram, and yeah, I'm usually posting stuff about comics there. Sometimes pizzas that I'm making, and my cat, but mostly comics. Yeah.
Thanks to Joe for the chat. You can discover more about Joe Ollmann on Instagram at Old Joe Ollmann. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators and their insight about making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.